Hello everybody. I'd like to say hello from the Arctiq team. This is our place. We're very happy to have you here and very happy that we are part of the conversation. Although I am going to tell you that we're not going to have cool CodePen samples like our previous speaker. In this particular one, it's actually more of a discussion that I actually like to have with the room. And I picked Deep Impact. Probably was the wrong choice. The vintage is a little older. Not everybody's going to get that. But the idea is Deep Impact was a disaster film from 1998. And everybody was worried. You know, what's going to happen? I don't know. Is there a meteor coming? Is it going to hit the Earth? Who knows? But really, the hypotheses that we want to talk about are simple ones, right? Like, and they're things that you're already using, yeah?
Was that artwork generated by Midjourney?
No, it was not. That's the movie poster with a Bitmoji layered over top. I did not use Midjourney. I actually, on my Mac, I use Diffusion B, which is stable diffusion locally, and I have fun with that. I do fun things. I don't have any AI-generated images in today's talk, but I have used them a lot. What I like to do is if I'm meeting with someone, I'll grab their LinkedIn picture, punch it into Stable Diffusion, and say, draw this individual like Picasso. And what comes out is fantastic, and it's kind of unsettling for the individual. Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. And so what we were invited to give a short talk, and what we wanted to talk about was some of the things that we think we're seeing, and there's a little bit of nervousness in the industry. Now, Arctiq works primarily with large companies, not with startups, not with small businesses. We're generally doing consulting work for big companies. And a lot of those folks are concerned about AI/ML, not understanding it, not understanding the intrinsic risks, not understanding the benefits. You hear all sorts of different stories. So we wanted to give a bit of a talk and have a bit of a conversation about this. And I'd actually like to learn from you what you're seeing and thinking about this in your perspective. So the hypothesis is that it's going to drastically change the methods and pace of work. We're going to do things faster, maybe do it a little bit differently. The other hypothesis that I like is that it will not replace the role of the creators, the developers, the engineers. Just accelerate them. And those that are using the tools will surpass those that are not. And that it'll democratize access to complex information, such as API specifications in depth, and reduce that cycle time. You want to know how to do something, it'll give you access to the details. You know, before, I might be showing my age here, but I'd keep an iPad with Dash on it with all the API specs and beside my computer so that I could look up everything I needed to see. Now, I can just ask the question. That's kind of weird. And what's weird is it comes up with code samples, working code samples, which is fun. So this is a 2023 film, temporally speaking. Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, right? These transformer models are changing everything. And as they make bigger and bigger models, they are appearing to be AGI, or generalized intelligence, right? They're getting pretty close. They're fooling a lot of people. I know a lot of folks are excited about AutoGPT and what's possible, right? Tell AutoGPT a bunch of outcomes that you want and have it iterate, and out pops the other side. A pretty plausible task that you might have assigned to a coworker, and with results. It's pretty wild. I'm curious, has anybody here experimented with AutoGPT at all? We got 3. We know who listens to the Crypto Bro podcasts, right? Yeah? Okay. It is a pretty wild world that's happening right now with that. And it really from my perspective, is unsettling how easy it is to get the machine to do something that feels like it shouldn't be able to do. And it's really because of the rise of the transformers here. I remember getting excited about 4 years ago when NVIDIA released Cybert, which was one of the early versions of being able to do natural language processing at high speed at a great rate. So in the industry I was in at that time, we could process messages that were signal that was coming from all sorts of things. And we could assess those signals very quickly. Even if we'd never seen it before, we could understand what was coming in because the Cybert model understood the sort of intent. Is there something here that's alarming? Yes? Okay, pay attention to it. Very, very odd. Has anybody had any experience here working with natural language processing, understanding intent? We've got a few. That looks like at about a 5 to 10%. Has it been fun? Interesting? Anybody a little terrified by some of it? I'm asking. I mean, the disaster movie theme is here for a reason, because a lot of people worry about it, right? You know, 1998 was crazy for Hollywood. They had nothing but disaster films. Armageddon, Deep Impact, the Godzilla film. I remember this Godzilla film specifically because I had a favorite band at the time who was on the soundtrack, Jamiroquai. They had a song called Deeper Underground, and it was a pretty good jam. That's why I remember this film. But why I...
There was also a film called L.A.
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, there was a bunch, yeah. It was a disaster movie year. I don't know why we were so worried. Maybe it was because of the approaching millennium. I don't know what it was. But boy, they really tackled us. But I remembered the movie Deep Impact specifically because of the storyline, which was overhearing at a distance but not understanding this phrase, Ellie. Who is Ellie? And if you've ever seen this film, you'll understand it. I think the assumption at first was this was the president's mistress or something like that. Who is Ellie? Is AI and ML and how it's being used these days, is this an extinction level event, right? Is this really going to challenge us for our jobs and our careers? I'm curious. I'd like to pause for an uncomfortable amount of time and ask the crowd, how are you feeling about what's going on? Anybody have anything to say? We've got a couple of hands over there.
Me particularly, I feel amazing how these tools are going to help us. A lot of people is afraid of losing jobs, but a lot of people don't have an idea of what kind of jobs are going to be created with it. So if you think about the web, how many people would think about someone being a YouTuber, just stay at home playing games and just streaming it and making a lot of money with that? Who would think of that before you even have a web?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. In the red in the back, you had your hand up earlier?
Yeah. I think one of the main points of concern would be people not humans taking themselves out of the feedback loop and just trusting the AI.
You're concerned about humans taking themselves out of the feedback loop. I'm repeating for the podcast or whatever we're recording here. Yeah.
Yeah, at a professional level.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Being somewhat concerned that we might submit to the will of the algorithm we don't quite understand. Yeah, that's interesting. In the middle here?
I'm quite excited about the opportunities that will create in terms of we have so many challenging problems we could work on instead of just kind of typing APIs.
Yeah.
Instead focus on much larger problems that we could tackle.
So being able to focus on complex problems. Again, I'm repeating both for the crowd and for the mic. I'm not trying to overtalk you. Yeah. And in the middle here, and then you.
Generally excited, and I think there will be a lot of existing work, but one part I'm a bit concerned about is like bias within models, plus like the
Model bias, yeah.
the hallucinations of like getting feasibly sounding results that just don't work. It's like this looks like a valid result, but it's completely made up.
It's completely trash. Yeah, I understood. It's appearing authoritative, but it's wrong when you actually put what it's done to the test. Yeah, and sorry, over here.
I mean, it's not something to really fear. It's more of like something's going to be changing, right?
Yeah,
Jobs aren't going to be lost; they'll be changing. So, an example where we're talking about banking tellers, when ATMs were starting to be used, they weren't fired; they just had different jobs, right?
different jobs. Yeah, yeah. Reskilled, retasked.
Exactly.
Yeah, upsell the customer. They need a new RSP. Yeah, totally get it. A couple more. Okay, we've got Greg here. Just disclosure, Greg works here at Arctiq. So
I always tend to think of it as like humans become the API for the customer's needs, and it just helps you accelerate your job a little quicker. I think you still need a driver when you're sort of trying to make meaningful sort of decisions about what a customer actually needs. It's never going to eliminate the involvement of people into how to solve a problem.
yeah, that supports the hypotheses.
Humans can almost become an API to,
Yeah,
whether it's like we're punching in, the data into the thing and it gives us an answer, we still got to implement, and there's so much nuance to dealing with people and customers in general. It's never going to be just like have a system solve everything.
Yeah.
There's so many politics involved in consult, at least in the context of consulting.
yeah, I can appreciate that.
For what I do.
Behind you, we've got 3 questions in a row here. So this is a tough one. The fellow in the hat beside you was first, then you, and then you. Okay, you were saying?
Yeah, so I just want to go back to your first statement, right? So I just want to focus on the fear of developers losing the jobs.
Yeah,
So what we need to understand is there's always 2 sets in programming or in software development. There's the programming problem, there's the domain problem.
yes,
AIs are good, LLMs are good, but domain problems are different from coding problems. You might be able to bridge them temporarily, but in the long term, it's going to be hard for AI to maintain a code. That's what I'm going to say. It might be in the future, but domain problems with maintaining code, I think that's going to be far from now.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. So domain versus coding problems and maintenance is going to be a problem, especially. I think someone else observed casually earlier. If I ask the same question twice, I get different answers, which is a fun one.
Yeah, so I think it's exciting. Also, I guess what caused a little bit of concern is just how quickly things seem to be moving. I remember like I think it was November, like ChatGPT came out. I was like, oh, this is cool, but it's gonna be years before it's a certain point where I can actually see it taking jobs. It hasn't like really been 6 months, and already it's like, oh, okay, you know what? I have a totally different understanding of where we're going. And now other GPT, we have the chance to use it, but I can almost imagine another 6 months from now, where things might be.
Yeah, throw your credit card in there for the APIs. At $2, you're going to blow your mind. It's kind of fun. And sorry, there was one more here, and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah, I think for me the concern would be less if the technology for companies that are enabling this was less concentrated on 1 or 2, such as OpenAI, Microsoft, or Google. And I just think the dependency on these guys, unless there are other competitors coming up who provide technology that's just as good, because even I know that Google came up with Bard that's for initial testing suggests not as good as OpenAI. Maybe Google's just nerfing it a bit. But
Yeah.
I think that's the main concern that I have is that OpenAI has this older technology that now thousands of startups and thousands of people are depending on.
So concentration of attention and power. I think I understand what you're saying, and I think it's also a little disconcerting when you learn that they fired a bunch of ethicists as well in some of the layoff waves. And so you're like, okay, you had people inside your company saying, whoa, and you ran them over, right? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. all very interesting perspectives. I see one last hand. I'm just going to grab it because you seem pretty eager over in the back.
I'm just gonna say that like the product backlog for the change and new feature backlog that we have is so big, we'll never finish it. And then my friend does development for small businesses.
Yeah.
The cost is still such a big factor where it's prohibitive for a lot of these businesses to build the tools that they need.
Okay, so deep backlog and cost
Yeah,
prohibitive.
like existing applications maybe have a huge backlog of bugs or new feature requests, and then there's all these businesses or people that have ideas. So as the cost to build these things go down, like more demand enters the market.
Yeah.
So we may be busier in the future because we can be more efficient, and because the cost to build things has dropped so much. So it's like
Understood. Yeah. So the cost being driven down because people are able to produce more with the same amount of time. Yeah, that's interesting. Another fun one that I like, mind exercise I like to go through is who's going to be consuming your features in the future? Is it people, or is it the agent in their pocket? That's a fun thought exercise to think through what that means and the rate and pace of innovation that's going to be required to keep up with that. So some use cases, not exhaustive. I'm not trying to lay out the entire landscape, but these are the kinds of use cases we are talking to people about. And as we move forward, I mean, you've seen these, I'm sure, in variations. Code generation, code review, automated tests, UI UX design, generating docs, and code security are probably the most common use cases. There are others out there, lots of them, but these are the ones where we see a lot of activity of things happening, companies announcing new products, integrating features into existing products. It's generally in one of these categories. And there's a bit of overlap between code security and code review. It's intentional to include them because they're sometimes thought of separately. And we're going to go over the first use case, code generation. And this is not an exhaustive list. And you may know about more tools. I'd actually like to learn about them if you know more of them. But generally, speed up coding tasks, provide productivity for casuals. There are a lot of people that are not like yourselves who want to get stuff done, and now they can actually get at it. And that's the example I'd like to bring here. I knew I couldn't possibly show you something as cool as what was in CodePen earlier, but I'd like to show you an example that's hypothetical, but kind of fun and a little bit real because you can actually see how someone might use this. But it's not yet 100% safe, and that comes down to the doubt that everybody has about what did you train on? Is this someone else's IP? What are the mistakes that it's made? How do I trust what you've generated? There's a bunch of stuff out there, but between Copilot, OpenAI's Codex or ChatGPT, AlphaCode Bard, Tab9, Polycoder, IntelliCode, Code Whisperer, there's a bunch of them that are out there that are helping people generate code. I'm curious, is there anybody here using something other than these? And I've got a piece of paper here because I'm taking notes because I want to learn.
There's one from Sourcegraph called
Called which?
Coding, C-O-D-Y.
C-O-D-Y?
C-O-D.
Okay. SourceCraft? Anybody else? I'm actually, this is research for me. Over here?
There's one called Replit, which has become a unicorn.
Replik?
Replit.
Replit.
Yeah, they just did their new thing.
Okay, nice. I'm gonna check that out. Anybody else? No? Pretty common ones. Now, I've got an example here, and you guys and gals and non-binary pals may laugh at this a little bit because it's a bit silly. But I said to ChatGPT, please write a Google App Script function, including menu item, that will alternate the color of the text on every other line of a document between black and white, and the lines that have white text will be highlighted with black, and the lines that have black text will be highlighted with yellow. It's a simple thing. Now, it's kind of a silly example, but that was the point of it. The point of it was, hey, AppScript is kind of inaccessible for most people that use Google Docs. Most people have no idea what AppScript is. And I wrote that, and this thing replied. An all-inclusive. Instructions on how to add it to the document, the code itself, and how to bring it home, including first-time execution instructions. And lo and behold, I pasted this into the document. And I had a lorem ipsum document, and I said, oops, I didn't realize it would count the empty lines between paragraphs as paragraphs. Like, oh, whoops, that was a mistake. So I said, hey, can you update this code to skip empty lines? Right? And it gave me an updated function. It's cheerful. It said, hey, yeah, of course I can do that. Right? Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Updated function and explaining the choice it made. That's pretty amazing. Lo and behold, just what I wanted. I wanted to do this in this hypothetical situation. I wanted that function, text highlighter, to do that for me. And it did it. And I did exactly no coding, no corrections, no nothing. And the point of highlighting this is not because I believe this is going to replace any of these jobs, but because it's democratizing access to the documentation, the API definitions, how to get shit done. And so you're going to have a lot of people that are going to show up and say, hey, I know how to do that. Tap, 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 tap. Hey, this is how you do it. And that's kind of interesting to me. Like, what does that mean? I liked one of the observations earlier is I get to concentrate on complex problems instead of looking up API docs, right? That's really cool. I get to think about it, think about the problem space a little deeper. I like that idea. I've read the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. Boy, oh boy, I can't find any quiet time though. But that's, and of course it does other languages too, right? And I know that's kind of silly to say, but I mean, it goes into whatever category that you're thinking about. And you know, here's a common coding problem. I think I found it on Code Challenge website. Wrote the code, works. It's pretty amazing. And so it's democratizing access to getting things done, which is interesting. Code review. This is a fun one. We had one of our consultants had ChatGPT automatically review PRs, which was kind of interesting, and have it critique them. Like, hey, this PR's got a problem. Interesting. So, you know, companies like GitHub and GitLab and, you know, everything, you know, you can find issues before build, and again, not 100% safe because it doesn't find all the problems, but it finds most of the common ones. I think this is pretty amazing. Again, democratizing it for people so that they can learn in a quick feedback loop, iteratively. Automatically writing test units. This one here, I actually find to be less controversial. A good place to start for many folks that are worried about automation, because you can improve your test coverage, and you won't have a risk management function if you're in a large enterprise worried about it because it's testing, it's not your IP, right? So improve that coverage, automatically get the tests covered. Sorry, I didn't ask, I meant to ask, for code review, is anybody using something else other than the ones I mentioned here for automated code review? What's up?
I was going to say my eyes, but you said
Yeah, automated. Yeah. I know you said the human API too earlier, and I was thinking, geez, I don't take instructions well. I'm an anti-authoritarian. And for automated testing, I'm curious. This one, I don't have a lot of reference material in my repertoire for automated test generation. I mean, I've used Jest and made my own assertions and done all sorts of fun things, but none of it was automated. Yeah?
Recently, I worked on a project using the VF for React.
VF from React, yeah.
And then, like, I asked ChatGPT, like, write me a test for this VF, and it used Jest.
Yeah.
It's like it has not learned the test yet.
I gotcha. Well, thanks for sharing. Anybody else in the back?
Yeah, GitHub Copilot X, their experimental tooling, but I think now is only VS Code. Is that?
Yeah, the GitHub Next Test Pilot is up here. Sorry, I didn't enunciate it, but yeah, GitHub Test Pilot. I've applied for the early preview, but I don't rank yet. Do you?
Yeah, I use the Pilot X. That I think it's different than that. That's
Okay.
GitHub Copilot, you just right-click code and say write the test for this, and it spits out the.
Okay. Hey, thanks very much for that tip. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
And to answer previous query, you can actually feed ChatGPT for documentation of the library that it doesn't know, and then it will know, and then it can write test for it.
Oh, you have to feed it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that you can gently hint with URLs. You can say, hey, I was reading this page. Can you tell me? And it comes back. It's kind of a fun one.
If you have the browser plugins, you can just put that right in and it'll fully know from then on.
Beautiful.
Yes, you don't need to just give it the URL. You can actually use the plugin and it'll know.
I love it. Oh, thanks. For UI UX design, this one's interesting. It's but moving quickly for prototyping, copy. Of course, everybody knows GPT for copy. Optimizing layouts. You're right. You've got a couple of options in front of you, and you want to figure out what to do. I think this is kind of interesting. I was pretty amazed by these guys. I don't know, anybody using UWizard? Yeah? Yeah?
I still just paste SVGs into ChatGPT from Figma and it'll do it for me.
I love it. Well, yeah, Figma, yeah, I've been waiting to hear news about Figma. Yeah. And then, of course, documentation, which is a slog nobody wants to do. Automatically generate docs, great looking designs. It's another GitHub early one, but Copilot for docs. And you get all that good looking stuff, but then you've got more time for engineering work, right? That's always good. We actually spend quite a bit of time with large organizations who want to move towards, and for a lot of you, this will be natural, but for a lot of enterprises, it's an unnatural act of like an API first design of actually opening up the access to APIs and making them available. One of the very first things we do is talk to them about creating dev portals and giving people access to the documentation. And this is very, very helpful to get that out there. Yeah?
So for documentation, you can also add the AWS Code Whisperer there.
Yep.
So, and in terms of the automated testing, I actually was able to write a fully unit tested code with mocks involved using Code Whisperer, and it generated the documentation through the code methods as well.
Fantastic. So Code Whisperer is pretty full featured.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I just wrote the method comment.
Yeah?
It literally created all the methods and all the unit tests with mocking involved on an existing code.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much for sharing. Yeah, that's cool. And then for code security, this one generally shows up in larger companies when they've got risk management and security teams who are worried about your software bill of materials, your software composition analysis, the licensing that you're using, what modules are you importing, are those modules safe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so organizations like GitHub have advanced security. There's Sneak, there's Code Whisperer. There's a bunch that do this. We really like what's possible here. And we spend a lot of time talking to people about this. We often hear it in the industry is called shifting left, which is basically taking your, in some organizations, you'll have a release gate where you make a release, you've declared that it's good, but then somebody else has to review it and make sure that it's secure, maybe do a pen test or whatever. And what we like to do is try to automate that in your CI/CD, so that when it gets to that release gate, everything they need to be sure that your release is great is there, and they're unblocked, and in fact we can actually automate the decision. Did everything pass? With a passing score, keep moving. I know that may not be as relevant for folks who are in startups. Maybe you don't have these kinds of gates, but when we're working with insurance companies and banks and things like that, there's a lot of that stuff. And so I just wanted to have a quick discussion. Is any of this useful, helpful, waste of time? And is it time for a new career? Like,
It's always time for a new career, right?
Always time for a new career. Yeah, I like that. Any thoughts? Was anything we talked about new? Because I think most of you are probably pretty fast moving. I'm curious if anybody learned anything interesting today.
I've just got a question even about this. It's like, how do you get people who are still hesitant to jump on it? Because we got engineers that are, some are using it and just blazing, others still not. I have friends that are just like not wanting to pick it up. There's still some kind of like knowledgeable barrier to entry. Yeah, I feel bad because I want to be able to help. Like, how do you get people up and saying, hey, just go try something?
Yeah, that invitation's hard, right? So hey, I'd like you to at least try it and see if it goes. I think there are some. I think about it a lot because I've got some kids who are just finishing high school, trying to get into university, and I've worried about the effects that these technologies have on their arc, and there's a lot of narrative around, hey, if the AI is doing the work, are you really doing the work? Even though you were the one that created the creative prompt to get the thing out of the AI. Like, is this really your work? I think there is a little bit of that. Personally, I think there's a little bit of that underpinning some people's hesitancy. I think so you got to create a condition of, like, it's cool, right? So we're not going to look on AI-generated content negatively or think of any less of your contribution because you used a helper, right? That's one item. But I hear you. I see it in our daily work. Yeah. Sorry, over here. Just behind you, Greg.
Yeah, I guess just to add on to that, I think one thing that might help is either like a little bit of hand-holding or demos.
Yep.
Like showing exactly what you can do. And then the way somebody pitched it to me was like, okay, instead of Googling, just ask ChatGPT. And then once I started getting to that habit, I started seeing the benefits and then was able to integrate into my workflow from there.
Cool. Greg?
Yeah, I think like for me, like my father's now using it. My father's, I guess, fairly technical in a sense in terms of an older man, and I think once you use it once and you ask it something and you don't expect a certain response from it, and you get that response, that's sort of like the ignition to like, wow, it's actually doing something useful, or it's actually doing something I don't know how it works. Like even me, like I don't think I'll ever understand how these people have designed this system. I think I'm okay with that, but I don't think I'm ever going to know exactly the underpinnings of how this whole product works.
They don't even know that.
I like that. I like that.
Aside from that, I had something else I forget. Yeah.
Oh, that happens. One sec. We've got one over here. Hey.
Yeah, so what I did was, a friend of mine was hesitant. I gave him a challenge. I said, try coding without using autocomplete or IntelliSense and see how much your productivity drops. And then instead then directly switch to one of these tools and see how much it increased.
Just unplug the network cable.
I love that.
The
Oh,
difference is just incredible.
yeah. And I'm sorry, over here?
Yeah, well, mine's a bit unrelated, but for me, I almost wonder if like, people who are good at writing and good at communication and languages almost have a slight advantage in terms of like, especially when it comes to like products like ChatGPT, for creating accurate prompts, for knowing exactly what to feed it so you get what you.
Yeah, there's a whole new career path called prompt engineering. It's kind of it's a weird one because it's exactly that. How to structure all the information that the model needs up front so that you get the response that you want. In the back here?
I was just gonna say you can prompt ChatGPT to and build your own design specification language in a format that you want, and write the requirements for the things that you want in that design specification you've defined.
Yeah.
And it's using the context of your conversation, so you don't even need to do document writing because you can tailor your requirements to your style of writing.
Now I understand the depth of your backlog. There was one more comment over here. No, oh, it's over here? Sorry.
I'll just go again. So regarding this whole concept of generating, I mean, to me it's like, so I'm a person who sucks at drawing, but I've been using Midjourney lately.
Yeah.
I have ideas and it seems to generate good art.
Yeah.
Right? I draw a contrast to how we have ghostwriters who can write but they can't sing, and then you have singers who will sing. You will rarely know who ghostwrited that song. Similarly, we have people who are good at coming up with stories, but then you have writers who actually put it into work, right? So
Yeah.
sort of that layer has always existed.
I like that metaphor. Yeah. Any other final thoughts? Or sorry, we got one in the middle here. Hi.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I think we are at an inflection point of evolution of language, not necessarily programming.
Yeah.
Human language, whether spoken, written, computer, AI, whatever. Because imagine 100,000 years ago, same species, but only thing we can do is make a bunch of grunts, pain, laughter, crying, that's it. And then from there to like so much bandwidth in every single token or every single word we speak. Similar inflection points, you could say like steam engine. If I say the word steam engine, it evokes us eventually probably the 17th, 18th century where like decades of work is just like books and labs and like, experiments are just condensed into this term steam engine.
I like that.
Then medical advancements.
Human progress.
Like
Yeah.
pneumonia.
Yeah.
Decades and centuries of experimentation and just fiddling around with the human body is condensed in this one term, and then similarly, this will be commonplace whether
Yeah.
you like it or not. You can pick up a screwdriver and build a rocket ship, or you could use the tools that have to build it.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm going to go back to the origin hypotheses just to make sure you know where I stand, and I don't represent the whole company I work for, but my stance is the methods and pace of work is going to change, right? And it's not going to replace creators. It absolutely needs your intelligence and problem solving layered in with all of the fast access to information that it's got. And that it democratizes access to information like API specs and reduces that cycle time for creation, so even people who have no idea how to program are going to start to be able to contribute. I think it's pretty amazing. Anyways, I really appreciate everybody's participation, and I hope this was a useful part of your time, and thanks very much.